Hi everyone, I'm James Lee from Cloudways by DigitalOcean, and today we are excited to talk about Magento 2 security patches and version upgrades. So I have two guests with me today, and they are Ali from TechGlide and Stephan from BitExpert. So Ali is the CEO of TechGlide and Stephan is the head of IT operation at BitExpert. So I'll let you guys introduce yourself. So Ali?
Hello, everyone. This is Ali Hashmi. I'm with Tech Glide. We basically focus on building, design, and build e-commerce solutions. We have been working on the Magento platform since pretty much when it came out back in 2007, 2008. So we have worked on both generations of Magento, Magento 1 and Magento 2. The last 4 to 5 years, there have been a strong, obviously, sense of security in the e-commerce space. There's a lot of been talks about security and performance. And in today's podcast, we'll be actually covering, the topics related to that. There have been a lot of confusion about the Magento. There have been Magento version upgrades and also Magento security patches. So we'll try to help you understand what's the difference between the two and how frequently or how often you should be doing these upgrades and applying these security patches. So we'll be covering that as well in our podcasts. It's very important. Security is an important topic, as you can see also in the there have been a lot of security breaches in the last couple of years. Especially since COVID, e-commerce has really picked up, and there have been a lot of traffic on the e-commerce website. So security has been a big concern, and we hope to cover that as part of our presentation today. With that, I'll hand it over to Stephan.
Thank you, Ali. Hi, I'm Stephan Hochdörfer. I am living and working in Mannheim, Germany. For the last 19 years, I'm running my own company. The company is called BitExpert. We are focusing on helping our customers in their digital transformation journey, which more or less means we develop custom applications, mostly in the digital sales space or sales side of the business, to digitize and optimize our customers' processes. We are about 80 people in total, having offices in Germany, Switzerland, Romania. Our main tech focus is PHP, Java, and React. On the e-commerce side of things, Magento is our core technology. We've been using that since Magento 2 came out, which is like, I think, 7 or 8 years ago. And since then, we help merchants, we help agencies alike with anything e-commerce, so to say.
All right. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Ali. As we all know, the world is moving ever greater in momentum into e-commerce, right? And that has been, really, really obvious during the COVID era, especially when people were stuck at home and they were buying, online in greater numbers. And, contrary to popular expectation, where they were thinking that this will actually sort of go away as people come back out. In this year's Black Friday online sales, there were actually some increases compared to 2021. There's actually a 2.3% increase. And in the US alone, there's a spending of more than $9 billion. So we're still looking at a growth in this online e-commerce industry. And today we are talking about Magento, which is one of the most popular e-commerce platform in the market. It's popular and it's very, very powerful as well. So, but as you know what they say, right? With great power comes great responsibility. So this is especially true when it comes to security of the e-commerce software itself. So for a self-hosted platform like Magento 2, it is very crucial that you deploy the security patches which are released by Adobe and doing upgrades and all. And we'll talk about that later in detail. So before we go to that, I'll also like to add that besides that, because it's a self-hosted platform, you'll also need like a solid hosting service for Magento 2. So because with that, Cloudways Managed Cloud Hosting is the perfect solution for that with fully optimized stack for best performance, reliability, security, and 24/7 support as well. So you can deploy a managed Magento server in minutes, vertically scale your server with a few clicks to handle traffic spikes, and also create a staging store easily when you want to do developments and all that. So um, with that, for the viewers out there, we have a Google form in the video description below that you can check it out. If you have any questions, you can click that Google form and you can ask us questions, or you can put it in the chat as well. So our guests or our team members will come and answer them later. So with that, I'm going to start with some of my questions with our guest today. So the question number one is, as we know, Adobe has been releasing new security patches and Magento versions on a regular basis, right? So I think Ali touched on this a little bit just now as well. So the very, very first question is, what is the difference between a security patch and a new Magento version, like a version upgrade? So Ali, you want to answer?
Sure. Yeah. So, earlier it used to be only version upgrades, and you seldom used to see security patches come out with patches of any form come out from Magento. In the last, I would say, 3 to 4 years, we have been seeing both the Magento version upgrades and security patches. The difference, at the high level, is that in the version upgrade, you have a lot more features as well. Not just the security aspect, but there could be other, updates. So it could be in the form of improving, the overall quality of the code. For example, in the latest version, the upgrade that came out is 2.4.5, Magento 2.4.5, in which they have about like 290 quality fixes or bug fixes and enhancements. They also made improvement to their caching, mechanism. Also, there's something called GraphQL, which is used heavily for the headless commerce. Headless commerce integration of Magento, which is called PWA. They have made improvement into that. They have made improvement into payment methods. So version upgrade encompasses not just security update, but also feature updates, feature and enhancements. As far as the patches are concerned, and mostly it has been security patches, it's specific to just a security vulnerability. So for example, there was a release of Magento 2.4.5, a couple of months back, and with that they had security patches for some of the previous versions as well, like Magento 2.4.3 and 2.4.4, and also a security patch for version 2.3.7. So if anybody who's running on the old Magento version, they could utilize these patches, and they don't have to do a full version upgrade, because a full version upgrade is a lot more complicated. We'll talk about that later, than doing just a patch upgrade. So that's kind of just at the high level, the difference between the two. Obviously, you will have to make a decision based on, what you have implemented, whether you want to go with a patch upgrade or you want to do a full version upgrade.
All right. Thank you, Ali. So, Stephen, what do you think is the best practice when it comes to deployment of security patches or new Magento version upgrading? So, like, for example, do you think like upgrade should be tested in the staging environment beforehand, or do you have any other best practices or tips?
Well, I guess the most important thing is apply them as early as you can. And I guess that's the bigger difference between the security patches versus the Magento releases. Like Magento releases come out on several strict dates per year. And obviously, you don't want to wait as long or that long to apply these patches, because like, the bad guys out there just also don't wait, right? So you want to patch as early as possible. Regarding questions focusing on staging environments, I would definitely test a security patch also in the staging environment. Usually things don't break, but you know it. You would just update and the whole site goes down, and then you're in big trouble. So always make sure to just do at least a quick test on staging, just to make sure that everything is working as it should. Because with the tons of modules you have self-built or bought from third-party vendors, you can't really be sure that everything is working when applying simple security patches. In theory, everything should be fine and everything should be working, but you probably come into a situation where this is not the case.
All right, so that is so true. And just a quick short plug as well. Staging environment is something. The reason I asked is because Cloudways has a very easy to use staging environment where you can create it with a few clicks, and you can do push and pull as well. So you can push and pull certain important data you want, and I think that is very helpful for certain situations. So coming on to that, Ali, I have a question for you. What is the best practice to maintain the security of a Magento store? So what do you have to do?
Yes, I mean there are there are several things obviously, and I think Stephen touched on a little bit that even when you're doing the upgrade, especially the version upgrade, you need to ensure you need to understand what all you have in place with your current system as far as the the extensions, Magento extensions that you have bought from third parties, the customizations you have done, the the third party, the API integrations that you may have with the ERP, CRM, or other third party systems. So you will need to look into all of that when you are actually doing the, if you want to say, or your security audit, right? So, and also you want to make sure that, that you only have, especially when I'm talking about extensions, there are a lot of, there are a lot of good extensions out there, a lot of bad extensions as well. So you want to make sure when you're purchasing the extensions, you are vetting them out, you're making sure that you are working with the reputable extension partner, because a bad extension can just become, a single point of failure in your application, and it could be the, it could exploit the vulnerability, which, somebody can exploit and can compromise your entire e-commerce operation. So you need to make sure that, you do that, vet them out thoroughly. As far as your custom code is concerned, you need to make sure that it's completely you're following the best Magento practices when you're building, and not tampering with the Magento core functions. And if you are doing that, there is a way to extend the functionality, and Magento has laid out those steps to different ways to different approaches to do that. So you want to make sure that you are, following the best practices when you're doing customization, or if you're using a vendor, for that purpose. We are, for example, when we work with our clients, we have certified Magento developers in our team who understand Magento best practices, and they make sure that they are always, using the best practices that are laid out. And especially, if you're working with a vendor who has a lot of exposure, about 10 to 12 years, like we have in the industry, it can certainly help, make sure that you are working with, even if you are using the extensions, you're working with the reputable extensions. So these are, and then another thing, obviously, from the, for the hosting server, it plays an important role as well. If you have a dedicated server, certainly that's always better. And I think Cloudways has developed a lot of offerings in that space. We have, we use
We'll talk
Cloudways
about it.
for,
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm sure you'll talk about that further. But so there are things like that you need to. So security, like we always say, it comes in layers. It's not just the application; it's also the infrastructure, which is an important part of it. And these are some of the things you need to probably consider when you are actually auditing or you're doing a security audit of your code base.
Thank you, Ali. So yeah, so Stephen, I would like to come back to you on this, since you are the technical guy in this room. So Ali mentioned a bit about auditing the code, right? So of the Magento website. So can you share a little bit more about the auditing part?
Sure. Basically, you should check and understand in each line of the code if there's anything wrong somewhere. Well, obviously, since Magento is so huge, you can't just read like every single line and understand it like perfectly. So let's assume we can trust Magento core that everything is fine. But for like any third-party extension, you should definitely check and understand what is this thing doing, how is this built, does it following the best practices of Magento, how optimized are the database queries, does it do some fancy stuff like loading something from an URL from the internet somewhere and then execute that in like the local namespace? There are some vendors out there who think that is a good idea. But since you don't control this end part, you don't know what's going on there. And if an attacker just captures that end part and is able to inject code in your own shop without you knowing it, you are in big trouble. So that's definitely something you want to avoid. So these are, I think, the main things you should look out for. In our case, our team usually also does code reviews of different programmers. So like one programmer is doing the task, and then another one is reviewing it before it gets merged. That's also a good practice, just to make the whole team aware of what's going on, and then B, also like spot things that maybe someone has missed in certain situations or certain cases.
All right, that's a great point, and yeah, I do think that um, we do need like a professional companies, like agencies who know what they're doing, to go through things like this, because otherwise we'll just buy off some module somewhere and start installing it and hope for the best. Yeah. So changing gear a little bit, I'd like to talk about EOL, which means end of life. So Magento 2.4.0 to 2.4.3, which are previous versions of Magento, reached end of life in November of 2022, end of November. So this question is like directed to both of you. You can choose, one of you can choose to answer it. What impact do you expect to see on websites which are still running these versions? Ollie, you want to go ahead? Okay.
Yeah, sure. I can go first. Yeah, so yeah, you're correct. I mean, Magento was a lot more generous in the past. Like they were used to have, give us a longer end of life cycle. So that way, at least, they may not be releasing the new features for that version, but at least you would have security patches available for the older version, right? So like you mentioned, that Magento is pretty much end of life Magento 2.4.3, or now it's called Adobe Commerce 2.4.3 in November 2022. It means that they will be no longer putting out security patches for any version lower than 2.4.3, which is obviously, so people who are on 2.4.3 or below, they should probably start looking into the upgrade, because upgrade, again, like I said before, depending on your setup, in terms of what you're using, it may take you may require some more time. Because one thing to keep in mind, just to highlight a little bit, that why Magento did that as well, why they ended up end of life 2.4.3 in November, because a big difference between the Magento 2.4.3 and Magento 2.4.4 is not just a Magento version upgrade, but also a PHP upgrade. So PHP, it used to be PHP 7.4 and below, supported on the older Magento versions, and now after the 2.4.4, it's PHP 8, and PHP 8 is a lot more secure, because the PHP also has its own vulnerabilities, that also Magento relies on.
Yes.
Because if the PHP is vulnerable, then even the Magento application, will automatically be vulnerable as well. So basically, what it means is that Magento will only support PHP 8 and above from now on out. So that's one of the reasons why they end of life 2.4.3, because that was the last version working on the older PHP 7.4 version. So I think, yeah, for the merchants, going back to the merchants, yeah, certainly, they probably, if they are on 2.4.3 and below, if they have not already upgraded to 2.4.4, they should do that regardless of the fact, because it's not just Magento putting it end of life, it's also that you have vulnerability in the form of the PHP there on your infrastructure as well. So you should try to get into 2.4.4, at least on 2.4.4, as soon as possible, because the 2.4.4, I think from what I understand, the end of life is November 2024. So even if you're on 2.4.4, for a couple of years, you should be okay, because Magento will be rolling out security patches for 2.4.4. But you should try to get onto 2.4.4 as early as you can, and that involve, again, going through that, because going from 2.4.3 or even the older version to 2.4.4 is a big jump, certainly, because there will be a lot of especially if you have customizations and things like that, you have to make sure that they are compatible with the PHP 8 version, and there are compatibility tools out there through which you can do those and check that out. So my recommendation would be that to merchants, that if you should try to get on 2.4.4 as soon as you can, so you can get the support, the security patches upgrade, plus also you reduce the PHP vulnerability as well with that upgrade.
Thank you, Ali.
Back to you,
And
James.
Stephen. Yeah.
Well, I guess Ali perfectly answered that question already, so there's there's not much room for me to add.
No worries. Yeah.
The thing I want to add is that at least some hosting companies do provide their own security fixes to older PHP versions, so that kind of keeps you safe for a while. But yeah, as Ali mentioned, try to upgrade as soon as you can. I know for some merchants this feels like totally annoying and they don't understand, but sadly that's the tech world, and things are changing. Things are changing often, and you just have to keep up with that, and stay current. Um, Also for various reasons. On the one hand side, there's GDPR, at least in Europe, well, technically all over the world. And if you strictly follow GDPR, it says you have to run on the latest, securest versions. You can't run it on any older version. If you do so, you are in big trouble. The same for PCI DSS, right? So you have to make sure you're running on a secure version of the application and the hosting environment, and that is the latest supported versions by your vendor, and that means you have to upgrade. So there is no way around it, unless you are a vendor who doesn't care or a merchant who doesn't care. But I hope none of the merchants watching fall in this space.
Let's not do that. Yeah, we are not gonna recommend. But that's a very good point about PCI DSS and also GDPR, especially just to give an advice for all those merchants who are watching, especially if you are in Europe. The fines are really really heavy if you violate GDPR and also PCI DSS, especially if there is a breach. So something to keep in mind. So that's a very very good point. The other point about PHP is also, yeah, that's another thing that is quite interesting. There's always this trade-off between security and convenience, security and compatibility. And sometimes people just take the easy way out. I mean, I know I do sometimes, for a variety of things. I just upgraded my computer OS like yesterday. I've been putting it off for a while because I'm worried about, bugs or things like that. But if there's a security patch for it, then it's fine. But if not, then you're putting yourself up to unnecessary danger for sure. Yeah. So regarding this PHP, so as we all know, PHP 7.4 reaches end of life as well recently. So as both of you, I think, are running agencies or running, managing websites, Magento stores, and not just Magento, like could be any other websites, other applications as well for customers. So do you see any problems or issues, like does it affect you or affect the stores recently? And like for Magento site or even for WordPress site, do you see any third-party modules or themes which still doesn't support PHP 8.0, 8.1, and that's hamper the effort when you upgrade? So yep, Ali, you wanna go first? Yeah. So
Sure.
I'm looking at how who's unmuting first. So and I know, okay, when you press unmute, you're the one who wants to.
You're the one.
Yeah.
All right.
So whoever wants to answer, please unmute. I'm watching you.
All right. Okay. You have to be careful with the mute button. So yeah. So no, I think 2.4.4 has been out for some time now. So I know that there was even like a couple of months back, there were a lot of extensions which were not supporting PHP 8. But now I think at least the reputable ones I know of, they certainly support PHP 8, and they have, and the ones that you want to use, actually, honestly speaking, are the ones that, and if anybody is not supporting PHP 8, it means that you probably should not be using them anyways. So, so that's pretty much, I would say that. So I think, yeah, now you can find a lot of compatible Magento extensions. But it's not just the extensions. You have to also make sure that your custom code, I mean, if you have been through vendor to vendor, doing different agencies, doing different kind of work across over the, with legacy code and a lot of, technical debt if you carry with you, then obviously you need to ensure that, this is the time for you to clean up, and you have to make sure that your code is compatible with the latest PHP, because there are a lot of functions that have been deprecated, PHP functions that have been deprecated in PHP 8. So you need to ensure. So this is a good time for you to do some house cleaning as a merchant. I know for merchants, I mean, there is no apparent advantage to going to, higher PHP or Magento version, because they, going to be for the most part business as usual for them, but there is certainly, you should keep aside some budget for your technical updates, which could obviously have an impact, long-term impact as well in your code stability, your site security, performance, and just running your business operations online. So yeah, I mean, so like a short answer is that yeah, I think the reputable extensions certainly are PHP 8 compatible now for the most part.
Just to highlight a positive thing about a PHP upgrade, you usually get more speed out of it. Like I think the latest 8.0, 8.1 versions have like 10 or something % speed increase. So not very significant, but at least you get a bonus or a benefit of upgrading.
Good point. Good point.
Additionally, if you want to make sure that your code is compliant or compatible with the newer PHP versions, I would suggest you to run a static code analysis tool, which will detect the changes and detect if your code is compatible with a specific PHP versions, and that will relatively easy show you issues. You still need to test everything, run your unit tests to see more in detail, but at least static code analysis gives you a good overview or a good starting point to see like how bad the situation really is for you.
I see. All right. Thanks for having us, sharing that with our viewers. So that is something that's interesting. Yeah. So I was just thinking about this as well, and also regarding what Ali mentioned as well about you should probably not be using uh, any vendor who is not prioritizing security updates. But sometimes it may be easier said than done, right? Like if I already have this feature it's built in, or when I buy certain thing, I'm not sure that they're not gonna support it. So yeah, but yeah, and so yeah, and another thing is like custom code. I sure hope that they have like proper documentation in those custom codes, or the next developer is like, oh, they'll be okay. Yeah, so that those are very very good points. And again, shifting gear. So we were talking a lot about like application level security, which is securing Magento, and also about um, PHP versions, having vulnerabilities in the older versions, and some providers trying to patch those versions, things like that. There's another aspect of security, which is nowadays, especially, we are seeing a lot of this web application firewall. I'll call them WAF for short. So, what do you think? Do you think that having a solid WAF is essential for an e-commerce store? So whoever unmutes first is the one who. All right, Stephen, come. Yeah. Finally.
Exactly. Finally, I made it. I would say definitely yes. So web application firewall is really important because that's like the first barrier for the web requests coming in. And even if you would run an older version of Magento, which has a few problems, let's call it problems, you might can catch them in the web request earlier and then just deny access. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying it's just an additional point where you could sneak in and have an additional configuration, just to make sure that let's call them like clean or valid requests are coming to your site and not like the bad guys trying to figure out how and where they can hack you. And I guess you guys have a web application firewall in your offering, I guess.
Yeah, we do. Just for our viewers' knowledge, there are like different types of application firewall as well. You have them in the server layer, or you have them in the CDN layer. You can have in various layers. Is there anything you want to add, Ali? Or
no, I think Stephan pretty much covered it.
Okay.
I think the WAF is important, especially for to minimize denial of service type of attacks and ensuring that your site is running healthy and you have tools available to monitor, to control the traffic. So I think it's I would say it's a must-have these days. Small or big, site doesn't matter.
Agreed. Yeah. So so one of the most popular WAF that I personally prefer is Cloudflare. So Cloudflare, you need to be beyond the free plan. It's like a from the pro plan onwards, they have their built-in WAF, which is very very helpful. And in Cloudways, what we do is we have a Cloudflare Enterprise add-on, which provides a powerful WAF and also priority DDoS protection to protect your Magento store. And in addition to that, Cloudflare, of course, you have improved performance with enterprise CDN, with image optimization, things like that. So, like for viewers who are not in Cloudflare, not in Cloudways, you can go direct to Cloudflare and you'll get like a pro plan costs you, if I'm not mistaken, it's about $20 a month. And for Cloudways, we offer the enterprise version, which normally costs thousands. And we have like a special arrangement with partnership with Cloudflare, where we offer it for $4.99 and as low as $1.99 for each application. And it's the enterprise version like provides better routing as well and priority DDoS protection. You get better sort of networking as well, so it peers with more POPs and network providers around the world. So yeah, regardless of whether you're a Cloudways customer or not, is recommended to have WAF. Check whether you have it with your hosting provider, whether it's in the server level. If it's not, or if you want an additional layer, Cloudflare is definitely the way to go. They recently introduced like a new machine learning WAF as well. So because the WAF normally like protects against known vulnerabilities and known attacks, right? But the new machine learning one tries its best to protect against unknown attacks as well. So yeah, something very interesting that I read recently. So besides WAF, I feel like there's something which has always been neglected, especially in our quest, to maintain the security of our application like Magento. We talk about the application layer, we talk about WAF, we talk about PHP, but how important is server level security and hardening of the server? Like, a lot of people feel like maintaining server level security to be a chore, right? Especially for busy developers or agencies with a lot of servers. So what do you guys think about this?
Well, I don't like to bring the bad news, but that's definitely also important. It has a similar importance to making sure that Magento is in a current version. Making sure you install the latest Linux packages that you have. I think recently there was an OpenSSL vulnerability again where you had to upgrade. Earlier this year we had this worst case log4j scenario, which is kind of embedded in your Elasticsearch. And I guess if you use current Magento, you do use Elasticsearch. So technically, I think it wasn't really vulnerable via Magento, but it could have been. So there's just a lot of things that you have to take into account these days. And Linux security or server security is definitely super important. Making sure that not all ports are open, that you limit SSH access if you have SSH access available somewhere, like just making sure you just expose HTTP, HTTPS traffic, so the least minimum attack surface. But still, like there's a Linux kernel involved processing stuff, and you could potentially do some bad things if you are in a virtualized environment, Kubernetes, Docker, and whatnot. It's probably a bit harder to escape these things, but there are sneaky ways that you can work around that if you have installed or using the wrong versions. So problems everywhere. Sorry for that.
This sounds scary. It sounds really, really scary. Ali, is there anything else? Do you want to add more to the horror story, or is it scary enough?
Yeah, no, I think Stephan captured it correctly. Security, as I always say, it's in layers, right? So you have infrastructure, then you have your operating system, your Linux should be patched up, your PHP should be patched up. It's not just the Magento application, but there are certain basic things, obviously, still at the application level, still the security inside that is still a biggest threat for security in general, right? So basic things like your access, right? Like, for example, in the case of Magento admin access, you don't want to, if you're creating any users, you want to make sure that, they do change their passwords, or there's a password policy in place, and you don't have unwanted. A lot of the extension companies, you create users for them, so you want to make sure that you disable those users which are not wanted. Magento has a pretty good thing called two-factor authentication, and I still know a lot of merchants who don't like that and they don't use it. But I think it's a must-use these days, especially on the admin side. You want to make sure that your Magento admin URL is not easily readable, obfuscated URL. That's what they call it. So you want to make sure you do that. You can even do IP restriction. Make sure that only people who are on your network they can access your admin. So there are things that you need to at the organizational level. You need to have organizational policies in place to make sure that you have the security policy, because I still, if you read a lot of security reports, you see that still insider is the biggest threat. It's not somebody sitting in some country trying to hack into your system. It's your insider who's actually the most vulnerable, that piece in the puzzle. So you want to make sure that you have the proper policies and education and learning within the organization to ensure that they are follow and abide the security principles that you have put forward in your organization.
Right. Thank you, Ali. So yeah, so I'd like to just summarize a bit. Like on Stephen's part of his points were mostly about server level security. So I would put those as the let's just have like different doors in the house. So I would say that correct me if I'm wrong. So application level security, like security patches and new Magento versions, I will call them the backdoor. And then server level like securities in Linux and whatever server packages, I'll call them like the side door. And then whatever is like what Ali just mentioned, like not using two-factor authentication and using simple password and things like those are the front doors, right? So you have to secure all your doors. If you don't secure any of your doors, like you just leave one of them open, then you're just opening yourself up to a ton of pain.
Your doors and Windows as well.
Good point. You need to secure Windows as well.
And there might be doors in Windows that you are not aware of.
Oh, exactly. And then we have to think about the ceiling as well. Speaking of Windows, your computer have to be secure as well. So if you have like backdoors, keyloggers in your computer, then yeah, we were just wasting time. I think that's one of a very, very major problem as well. People with computers with virus, malware, and all that. So yeah, security is like always a headache. Well, I'm happy to say that before that, one thing about Stephen mentioned about keeping your Linux packages and all up to date, kernels and all, and there's another thing which is like, for example, if you update your kernel, you have to reboot the server. If you update it and you don't reboot your server, then you're not using it. So you need to make sure things like that happen as well. So there's another horror story to have. Something to keep in mind always, because you can set it to auto update. Anyone can do that. But if you don't reboot it, it's not like your computer where it'll annoy you to reboot it. If you don't reboot your server after updating a kernel, it's quietly in the background. You just don't know, right? So you need to be on top of things like this, which can be a hassle. And I'm happy to say that Cloudways takes care of all those things at the server level, so you don't have to worry about. We even schedule a reboot window. You can choose when you want to do it for you. But yeah, so we take care of some of your doors and windows, but not everything. So your developer will, or yourself, if you are the developer, will have to take care of like security patches, and the website administrator or owner or IT manager will have to take care of security policies, like which strong password to use, two-factor authentication, or even better, like Ali mentioned, IP-based access, right? So you restrict it to only certain users, and even hide your admin URL so nobody knows it. So yeah, a lot of things to think about for sure. So I'm getting a bit worried about those who think that they can do everything on their own. I'm certainly not able to do it on my own. We need like professionals in different fields to help with all these things. But yeah, if your online store is important, if you are making money from your online store. I think these are things that you should definitely focus and think about, and pay more attention to. Even put money where your mouth is. If you have to spend some money to, like for example, even Cloudflare, you have to spend like $5, $20, whatever, and you have to spend money on developers who know what they're doing. You have to buy proper uh, modules or from themes, from proper source. Yeah, another thing is never ever use like a null, or those free downloaded a paid software which you download for free. Those are never good news, right? So okay, I think I've ran out of questions for today. Our timing is pretty good as well, so we don't want to bore our viewers too much. But I think we have covered quite a bit. Um, I do want to give you guys an opportunity to have a final few words to our viewers today. It could be advice, it could be call to action, it could be anything else that you want to mention. So, yeah. Again, we'll play with the whoever unmute first, you can go first. Don't be shy, guys. Unless it's like,
Okay,
can you hear me? Am I muted? We are used to that for the past few years. But Stephen, yeah, let's go. Over to you, Stephen.
Right. So I guess my advice is stay safe, stay safe, do regular updates, and if you can't do it yourself, hire a professional. Happy to do it myself or let my team do it. So if you really need someone to also look at your code, doing code audits or stuff like that, just contact me, and we'll see what we can do for you. Don't play easy and do no upgrades and don't care about the stuff. I mean, you have this online business, you are responsible, and that's when you need to take action.
Thank you, Stephen. Ali?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm going to say is that you're not just responsible for your security, but also the security of others. So if your site is vulnerable and not patched up and not upgraded, then you're also compromising other, your customers' security. So you want to make sure that you do work with, and understand the Magento, upgrade patches and their upgrade kind of life cycle, because you need to ensure that you are up to date to the latest versions if possible. Definitely Magento 244. We help about several, I would say 20 plus merchants so far already this year, with the version upgrade, and there has been a rush to do that because, especially since Magento has done 243 end of life, so there is a big rush for that. I would highly recommend, like Stephen said, hire a professional. If you can do it yourself, we can certainly help. We have a team of people, certified people, trained experts who can certainly help you do that. But you need to ensure that your site is secured and well maintained and cared for, and and then and you build it, and they will come then. That's all from me.
All right. Thank you, Ali. So yeah, it was great having you two here. We had a great session today, and I'd like to thank everyone, all our viewers, for viewing, especially to our guests Ali and Stephen for joining us and sharing all this very useful information. So this is the first of our many series here to come. So please do stay tuned, and thank you. I think, yeah, Stephen and Ali, let's unmute and say thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And cut. We haven't stopped recording. We should.